Okay, Mike, why don't you start by telling me the name of the police department and then describe what happened, and I'll give you some direction after that.
Okay. The name of the police department I found out is actually the Expo Police.
Okay, you said Cal Expo?
Yes.
Okay, and tell me what happened.
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. About 9 o'clock or 8:30, 9 o'clock. My family was consisted of myself, my wife, my 8-year-old son, my 11-year-old son, and his friend were watching Weird Al Yankovic perform at the State Fair. And I had one small beer there. And after that, we were walking around. We were talking about doing some rides or whatever, looking at tickets and stuff, and decided not to do that. We got some cotton candy. My youngest son and I were walking in front of everybody else. We were about 20, 25 feet in front of them. And all of a sudden, my son and I both get hit by a bicycle, which was a police officer. We didn't know they were behind us. They didn't say anything, nothing. They just hit us and kept riding. I turned around and I looked back at my wife, and she was telling me to grab Austin, which is my youngest. So I grabbed him, and we turned around and we continued walking. Within a minute later, an officer comes up from behind, grabs me on my left arm just above my shoulder, and throws me aside and continues walking past us. And I said something about him not having the right to touch me like that, and he turned around and he told me I should have gotten out of the way. And I said something about him not having to be an asshole about it, and he told me to come to him. And as I was approaching him and he was approaching me, as soon as I got close enough to him, he threw me into a headlock, threw me up against, my children said it was the Michael Jackson ride there, and put me in handcuffs and told me that I was out of there. I was on my way home. When I told him that's fine, that's where I was going anyway, that's when he decided that I was going to jail. Now, this whole time, my wife, my son, my oldest son, and his friend were still, a good distance behind us. The police officer left my child standing there in the crowd by himself, unattended. Not one of them directed their attention towards him or his well-being until my wife got up there. And at that time, they didn't even know that that was his mother, okay? Mm-hmm. And as they started to drag me away, his partner said, "We're just going to throw him out the front gate, right?" And he says, "No, he's going in now." So they took me through the tunnel, and I asked the officer what I was going in for, and he said for being intoxicated. I asked him how he knew I was intoxicated without doing a test. He said I wasn't driving, so he didn't need to do a test. And from there, I just went along with everything that they said and did.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions if you don't mind.
No, no problem.
Okay. Did you have anything to drink, and if so, how much, and were you intoxicated in your opinion?
I had one beer, which was, I don't know the exact ounce of it. It was one of the smaller ones that they sell. Mm-hmm. About, I'd say, 45 minutes to an hour before the incident. Mm-hmm. And no, I was not intoxicated. I wasn't even on this officer's radar. He was just trying to go by me. Mm-hmm. If I wouldn't have said something about him touching me the way that he did...
Ma'am, I'll call you right back. Just a second, Mike. Just a minute. Mike, hold on a moment. Ma'am, are you still there?
Yes.
Yes, I'll call you back. I'm finishing the interview. I'll call you in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm sorry about that, Mike. So you were not intoxicated, and you were acting...
No, by no means.
Yeah, and you were acting legally when you were just walking with your kid and your wife.
Yeah, we were just walking down the midway. I wasn't even on this officer's radar. I wouldn't even had any other encounter besides him grabbing me and throwing me back like he did, unless I didn't say anything about the way he treated me by touching me. He had no right to touch me.
So you think that his actions were provoked by the fact that you commented about him negatively?
Yes.
Okay. And your comment wasn't intended to harm or threaten him in any way, correct?
No, it was not.
And all you said to him was, you don't have the right to put your hands on me like that.
I told him he had no right to touch me like that, and he told me that I should have gotten out of the way then.
Okay. And what state are you in when this happened? What state? What?
California.
Okay. I'm a retired cop from California, retired detective, and I can tell you a couple things. Were you arrested for 647F? Okay.
I don't know what I was arrested for.
Okay, well
What they did is they took me they put me in one of the cells at Cal Expo for about 3 hours, and then they shipped me over to Sacramento County jail, and I sat in they did one fingerprint thing on a computer. What they do? They sent me to another cell with a bunch of people, sat in there for several hours, and then they took me out and they fingerprinted me, handprinted me, did all the printing, took my picture, and then sent me to a releasing cell. Sat there for 4 hours, and they said, if we give you paperwork, you have a court date. If you don't have paperwork, you don't have a court date, you're done. You're out of here. They didn't give me paperwork. I don't have a court date. I don't have a fine, nothing. So I don't know what I was charged with, really.
Okay. Let me just go through a few things. It's more likely than not that you were charged with drunk in public, which is 647F. And the reason that an officer would charge you for that, there's really two reasons. One is you either have to really be drunk in public, or two, it's called an attitude arrest. And what I mean is, frequently police officers know that they can use an intoxication charge against citizens, particularly if it's not a drunk driving charge, because there's not going to be any record. You're not required to submit someone to a sobriety test, so it's your word against his. And because you didn't take a breathalyzer test, there's no record basically, so he's arresting you basically for your attitude and using that charge to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. I think you should get an attorney. I think you should file a complaint, and we're going to help you with that. And I certainly think that this officer should be fired for what he did, because if it happened the way you described, meaning that you're minding your own business, he bumps into you, you make a comment.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't bump. He physically put his hand around my arm and yanked me back to get around me. Instead of going around me, he wanted to go through me. So he literally grabbed my arm and pulled me backwards so he can proceed forward.
Got you. Well, even more so, then you have a complaint on a couple of grounds. First of all, I actually think it's to your advantage that he didn't write a police report, because he would have memorialized a number of probably misstatements about what happened to cover himself. And because you weren't formally charged, I doubt he even wrote a report. So that's not going to help him. It's not going to work to his advantage to have done that, but that's probably what he did. In terms of your actual complaint, I think you have at least 3 complaints. You have an excessive force complaint, which is the most serious. You have a false arrest complaint, and you have an unprofessional conduct complaint for the way that he managed your minor child. And I think all those complaints are serious, and you should move forward with action on this complaint. Let me just stop the interview there.